Crawley, the town my mum used to take me shopping and the town my dad used to take me to watch the football. I might only go a few times a year and I certainly wouldn't brandish myself as a Crawley fan over my support for Chelsea, but nevertheless, this club will forever have a special place in my heart. I've said it before on the channel that this is where I found my love for football. Watching the Blue Square Bet Premier through those turnstiles with Matt Tubbs, Sergio Torres and Pablo Mills all the stars of the day. I saw that famous FA Cup run. I saw those back-to-back promotions and that town where I get taken for a day out at the cinema, a game of bowling, maybe some ice cream, or maybe to get dragged around that shopping centre again. I saw that town on the telly and I was so proud. Fast forward to the present day under the current owners WAGMI United, who, despite their controversy, do deserve a lot of credit, because after years and years of League 2 mediocrity, what's happened to the club in the last year has reignited my love for Crawley Town. From travelling up to Hartlepool to watch them secure survival in 2023, to getting the train up to Wembley just 1 year later for one of the greatest days of my life. Crawley won under the Wembley Arch and earned promotion to League One for the first time in a decade. And I was mortal.
Red Army! Fucking nonsense.
People are quick to forget the role that WAGMI played in Crawley's promotion-winning campaign. After all, if it wasn't for Scott Lindsay and the players that they brought in, we'd probably be looking at another season of fighting League 2 relegation. But that success has felt as though it's paved over the cracks between a frosty relationship between the owners and the fans, and a relationship that this season feels as though it's reached an all-time low. WAGMI United are a group of cryptocurrency investors who on their website claim that together we're going to take Crawley Town to the Premier League. Which sounds a lot like what I say to the press when I'm playing as Crawley on Football Manager. But unless you're bankrolled by Ryan Reynolds, an achievement like that is not that easy. They sold fans a utopian dream, wanting to reinvent broken sports management models and promise transparency and accountability to Crawley Town supporters, all whilst becoming the internet's team. These new owners came in with bold ideas, planning to sell NFTs to fans and investors of the club, with the intention of these being used to help make decisions on certain steps that the football club would take next. Ones that they claimed would be the future of football, and ones that they claimed would see the fans get their say. It's safe to say that WAGMI inherited a mess at Crawley Town, with the club owing the previous owner almost £1 million in debt, and once the new owners actually came in, their first month in charge was an absolute nightmare start, with the price of the cryptocurrency Ethereum dropping by 70% after Russia invaded Ukraine, and then manager John Yems being involved in a racism scandal.
John Yems has been handed multiple Football Association charges relating to allegations of racism.
Deeply offensive and racist names being used to players from ethnically diverse backgrounds, and also this notion of segregation.
Crawley made the decision to sack John Yems before the FA later charged him with racial discrimination and using racist comments on 16 different occasions over 3 years. And despite Yems denying the accusations, he was found guilty on 12 counts of racial abuse and banned for 18 months. A ban that was later doubled to 3 years. So not exactly an easy start for these new owners, who not only had their finances drastically cut as soon as they walked through the door, but also had to try and deal with such a closely watched scandal which left them with their first managerial change, an area that WAGMI haven't exactly excelled in. Inexperienced Kevin Betsy was hired in June 2022, an appointment that lasted only until October that same year, with just 1 win in 12 games. Former player and brother of Ashley, Lewis Young next took the helm as interim manager until former West Ham and Stoke City winger Matthew Etherington took charge on a permanent deal that lasted just 32 days. But it was third time lucky for WAGMI with their next appointment, as Scott Lindsay took the reins, and it's safe to say that with this appointment the owners had absolutely smashed it. After confirming survival at Hartlepool, WAGMI invested in 17 new signings, all players who co-chairman Preston Johnson described to The Athletic as overlooked or underregarded, but had good underlying numbers for creating or limiting expected goals. And despite a mixed season overall, as well as being the bookies' favourites for relegation, Crawley snuck into the playoffs at the end of the season and found form when it mattered the most, thrashing MK Dons 8-1 over 2 legs, and on the club's first ever trip to Wembley, they beat Crewe 2-0 to seal promotion, with summer signings Liam Kelly, Danilo Orsi and Jay Williams quickly becoming fan favourites. It was a summer that will stay with me for the rest of my life, walking into work with a chance of "We've got Orsi" or Aussie ringing through my head 24/7 and seeing more Crawley shirts on fans around me in the street than I've ever seen before. It was just incredible. And with what was perhaps the most unlikely promotion story that League Two has ever seen, the WAGMI vision was seemingly falling into place, meeting their promotion deadline set by the new owners and probably surprising themselves in doing so. But they were finally giving the supporters a chance to believe. And strangely, this is where things started to go wrong. Between the summer of 2024 to the end of the January transfer window, 9 of the starting 11 of Crawley's Wembley winning side had been let go by WAGMI in an attempt to completely rebuild Crawley's first team for their new League One adventure. As a fan of the club, it was heartbreaking to see the team that I'd just fallen in love with get ripped to shreds in the way that it did in that summer transfer window. And in truth, those players were more than just squad numbers. They were heroes who made a town believe again. They believed that they could do the impossible and then went one step forward and actually achieved it. I understand that football is just a business these days, and that's ultimately something I don't like about what the sport is becoming. There's no loyalty anymore. And for the fans of this club, they watched their team get torn apart in one summer transfer window and were forced to start that new season not knowing who anybody was, not knowing what to expect. The relationship between the players and the fans had absolutely gone. And this was the first of many controversies that were going to come from WAGMI this season, and ultimately where the relationship between the fans and the owners began to sour. In September 2024, manager and Crawley Town god at this point, Scott Lindsay, was allowed to leave the club and join up with former Red Devils Liam Kelly and Lawrence Maguire at MK Dons. So understandably an unpopular decision from the fans' perspective, who not only have lost their manager and their team from last season, but now all identity from last season's promotion winning campaign. Fast forward to November and the damning revelations of Mahamadou Fall's summer transfer saga became known to the world, causing a social media storm. The striker had signed and been announced as a Crawley player back in July, but left for Worthing in September without making a single appearance. And once the truth was out, it was a PR disaster for the WAGMI owners. First of all, Fall claimed that he was falsely told by the club that he had failed his medical, which they later put down to a miscommunication. Furthermore, the 6-month contract signed by Fall included an option for an 18-month extension, something that was prohibited by EFL rules, meaning the player couldn't be registered for the Crawley Town team. The club refused to alter the contract and subsequently let him go on a free transfer to Worthing, a deal that would falsely be reported as for an undisclosed fee. Mahamadou Fall spoke about the pressures that this situation put on him and the effect it had on his mental health, with a wife and daughter to look after, as well as a deposit that he'd recently put down on a house, and a deposit that he was left unable to pay following the breakdown of his contract with Crawley Town. This made the club look like they treat their players as assets rather than actual human beings, and understandably left the Crawley Town fans embarrassed. On Christmas Day, the club announced 2 brand new designs for their club mascot Reggie the Red Devil, both of which were met with poor feedback from fans. And since this saga, no new updates have been put forward, and Reggie is still the same. Despite the upset that this caused online, this did see the fans get their voices heard, which isn't the only time that the ownership have been good and listened to the fans when making decisions about the club. However, it was on the 18th of January at 6:48 p.m. that a woman named Carol Bates, a woman who worked with the young mascots at Crawley Town for 8 years, posted a tweet that took the internet by storm. She revealed that she had been told by the club that her voluntary services were being terminated and was accused of being derogatory about the club in a previous post. A post that called out the club questionnaire regarding brand identity that featured the following questions. Which animal best represents Crawley Town? If Crawley Town were a character in a movie, who or what would they be? And if Crawley Town was a dish, what dish would it be and why? A sarcastic reading reply from Preston Johnson caused Carol Bates to bite back, and a phone call the next day saw the club casually discarding one of Crawley Town's most faithful fans. Carol's tweet that she had posted exposing what Crawley had done had been seen 1.8 million times in what was another PR disaster for the club. Whilst performances on the pitch weren't showing any signs of real improvement and morale at a crushing low, pressure was increasing on the ownership, with the general feeling around the supporters sort out or get out. Around a week or so later, the Crawley Town Supporters Alliance posted their results of a survey surrounding the WAGMI United ownership, where a whopping 60% of 700 people that voted for WAGMI to put the club up for sale. To this day, WAGMI, who promised quote, a new era of unprecedented transparency and accountability to Crawley Town Football Club supporters and the Crawley community still haven't responded to the supporter group. On the 19th of March, former supporters director Sam Jordan appeared on the Crawley Town fan podcast Simply Reds and exposed some of the things that he witnessed whilst working under WAGMI United. He revealed why he stood down from his role after witnessing, quote, repeat mistakes, a lack of integrity and a failure to learn from past errors.
Evan Smith was very keen on allowing supporters and NFT holders to have a say on the team selection for the EFL Trophy games.
They wanted to do a vote on who to play during a competitive fixture.
Yeah, and there was other ideas about, I don't know, can fans make up a free kick routine or a corner routine?
Ultimately, the manager would feel undermined, players would feel undermined, coaching staff would feel undermined at basically being told how to do their job.
The club have already purchased and ordered a third kit for next season with a new club crest on, without any fan consultation at all.
Crawley's owners came in with the intention of becoming the internet's team, with WAGMI standing for We Are All Gonna Make It United. But internet scandals, discarding players and volunteers, and refusing to communicate with fans makes those values feel unattainable under this ownership. So for this to work, something has got to change. I don't want this video to be all doom and gloom, however, and I do think it is really important that we balance out the argument by recognising some of the good things that WAGMI have done whilst being in charge of the club, aside from the obvious promotion last season. They've improved the quality of staffing related to improving on-field performances, such as coaches, data analysts, as well as improving training equipment and facilities. They've also managed to partner with Adidas, generating a new raised income from the sponsorship deal. Attendances are also on the up, with last season's average home attendance the highest it's ever been at 3,557, with the highest attended home and away games both against MK Dons in the playoffs also taking place last year. And this is possibly reflected in the fact that WAGMI decreased Crawley's ticket prices by over 30% after joining, with Crawley's current ticket prices some of the lowest in League One. Their cheapest season tickets are only £6 more expensive than the cheapest in the league. They've also invested into improving the design and the feel of the stadium's interior, such as T-screens around the ground, self-pouring beer taps, as well as incorporating a consistent brand identity around the stadium. Following issues faced last season during the playoffs, WAGMI have also introduced a new ticketing platform in order to prevent situations like that happening again. And as of June last year, discussions have been started regarding buying the club's stadium in order to maximise gate receipts for the club, which is a hugely positive sign, especially if they managed to pull it off. From an outsider's perspective, the changes that they've made since taking over have been progressive and incredibly positive for Crawley Town Football Club, and I don't think many fans would deny that. After all, when you look at the situations at other clubs like Reading or what happened with Bury, it would be ridiculous to even try and compare those owners with WAGMI. But for a club whose history fondly remembers the heroics of former owner and chairman Bruce Winfield, that relationship between the Crawley supporters and its owners is one that is integral to the culture of this football club, and one that currently feels distant and tinged with frustration more than anything. I don't feel like it's my place to come here and preach about what I think should happen next. Those should come from the season ticket holders and the fans that turn up here week in and week out, but those voices aren't currently being listened to. I've only got a small platform on YouTube, but I've got a huge love for this club, so let me make this clear. I'm not making this video to get people to conspire against WAGMI, because from the mountains of media that I've consumed when researching this video, it is so clear to me that their intentions for the club are pure and that they've got the best interests at heart. In a lot of areas under their ownership, they are doing well, and I said at the top of this video that if it wasn't for them, Crawley would not be playing League One football this season, so I think it is so important that we give them the credit where it's due. They brought in the players, they brought in the manager, and they've improved a lot of facilities at this club. This ownership is young and it's still learning to walk in the world of football, and they're going to make mistakes, and some of those we've already seen. The frustration comes from those same mistakes being repeated again, the failure to learn from the mistakes that have already been made, and most importantly from fans feeling ignored and shut out, and that has got to change. I get the impression that the fans feel embarrassed by the ownership sometimes, and in some cases, credit to WAGMI, they've listened to the fans and they've rethought, but it's not all of the time. And there are a lot of issues that have happened this season that have just been swept under the rug and tried to be ignored, and that should never have ever been the case. At the end of the day, all that anyone wants to see this club do is win. The fans more so than anyone. The poor performances on the pitch, however, have let all of the background noise rise to the top. And WAGMI, you've brought that on yourselves. So re-engage with the fans, start listening to them. And I believe that if you live up to the promises that you made, you hold your hands up and admit when you've got stuff wrong and continue to do so for the future, people will be so much more understanding. The transparency between the fans and the board is all that anybody wants. Those NFTs and all those extra other gimmicks can wait until what's most important is done right. And that is getting the results right on the football pitch. Getting Scott Lindsay back on board for a second stint at the club is such a massive win. Funnily enough, we bumped into him when recording this video earlier today. It's a great moment. I've got a lot of love for the man, and I know that the fans do too. It's too late, however, to do anything drastic on the football pitch, and all we can do now is hope. But with just a change in managership alone, that spark is back. That buzz is back around the place, and you saw that when I came here on Saturday. Whatever does happen by the end of the season, however, is what it is. But next season is such an important one to prove into the people that you are the right people to be running this football club. This is your legacy that you're building here. So do it right. Learn from the mistakes you made, because if things don't improve, then things are going to get very, very messy very, very quick. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching as always. Comment down below your thoughts about this whole situation with Crawley Town and their ownership. I'm sure I'll be spending a lot of time reading through these comments. But ladies and gentlemen, I will see you guys in the next one. Come on, the Crawley Town. Take care, peace and love.